for meeting with me again about all the amazing things that we've talked about over the last couple weeks. So if you don't mind, we're going to do the same thing we've done each week. We're going to introduce ourselves, say our positions and how long we've been working in education, and anything else you want to share, and then we'll get started. So I'm Tori Dees. I have been in education for about 13 years, and I'm currently the curriculum specialist here at South Georgia.
I'm Tina Newkirk. I have been in education for 13 years, and I am the Read and Recovery teacher here at South Georgia.
And I'm Matthew Jackson. I've been in education for, this is my 18th year, and I am the Math Recovery Intervention Specialist here at South Georgia.
So we have, I know that you've been in all of our meetings, and you were in our last meeting, which is going to be great, motivator actionable steps. But I think the information that we're going to go over, we're going to just review over what we've talked about in the last couple of meetings, and then we're going to really talk about how it's going. How are our actionable steps progressing or not progressing? So the first thing I want to talk about is our agenda. We're just going to quickly go over our norms. We're just going to review our last two meetings, and then we are going to today really reflect on our progress and our successes. So just a reminder, our norms is just using our technology appropriately. I do have my laptop today, and we're looking at the screen so you guys can see all the data. So you do not have it in your hands, but you guys can see it up there. Collaborate respectfully, actively listening to others. We're going to keep our comments constructive and professional and on topic. Maintain focus on the topic of the faculty meeting, and we're going to be positive in our collaboration with each other. Do you all willingly agree to those norms? Do you have anything to add to those norms? Okay. So today our objective is really just talking about the progress. How are our actionable steps that we made last week or last time we met together, how are they going? And what things can we change? And what challenges are we still facing? So really quick, just a review is that South Georgia, we have pre-K through 5th grade. We're in Amarillo. We have about 400 students. We are a Title I campus. About 33% of our students are at risk, and about 65% of our students are considered economically disadvantaged. The way we get that, like we talked about in that first meeting, was if they qualify for free or reduced lunch. We talked over iStation data that first meeting. We looked at reading specifically. We looked over our TAPR report and looked at STAR data for our 3rd through 5th grade students. We even looked over our attendance data to see if there was any correlations between our scores and the attendance. And then we looked over some of our interim data and our district common assessments. So what we talked about in that first one was that we noticed that our 4th grade data was drastically different from our 5th grade data. Our 5th graders seem to be showing really good progress on their state assessments, but also on their iStation. It's just showing that they're kind of leaps and bounds ahead. We did talk about that could have been the fact that 5th grade, when we had our shutdown, they were in 3rd grade and they had gotten their foundational skills. We also talked about that group just kind of being a unicorn group, and that sometimes happens too. We noticed that our economically disadvantaged students in 2nd grade and 3rd grade are the number of economically disadvantaged students in 2nd and 3rd are higher than our 4th and 5th graders. So we are noticing that the makeup of our school is really changing, that we are becoming more of a Title I campus, higher numbers, and we'll probably see that next year. Our 2nd grade students that we're seeing is that we have a large group. Almost, I think it was 75% of our students were economically disadvantaged in our 2nd grade group. And our data was showing a comparison to that as well. We had more students, our economically disadvantaged students, really in 4th and 5th grade didn't show a huge discrepancy in their testing compared to our students that were not economically disadvantaged. And then our other thing that we noticed was that attendance did not show a huge glaring problem. We kind of originally thought that maybe attendance was the the reason why our students were not doing well, but we noticed on the attendance TAPR report, there really was no correlation, between the two. So, we moved, that was really what we noticed, and the why, we made a list of why. MJ, do you wanna just read our whys for us?
So why the emotional needs aren't being met for both students and teachers. Trauma is freezing emotional and intellectual abilities. It's been 2 years since a normal year, which is affecting everyone. Do you want me to just read the starred ones that we have? Or the whole
Yeah,
thing?
you can do them all.
Okay. Fifth grade had foundational skills before the shutdown in third, which is what you said. But fourth, third, and second, they missed huge amounts of skills that they needed, which is affecting their maturity level. Behavior issues, attention, stamina, patience, and immediate gratification. There's a lack of background knowledge in vocabulary and schema when it comes to, being able to read. Also, that could be in mathematics as well, just being able to connect with things right now. Oral language is lacking. There's a lack of engagement. Then we have technology overload. Maslow's basic needs are not met. And then we're missing phonics. And then we also had a question, how are the foundational skills taught?
Yeah.
Do we know how to deliver instruction on them?
Okay, and we had added those in our last meeting too. So really all these were things that we said, the why. Why are we seeing it's a difference in our economically disadvantaged students? And these were the reasons we had come up with. And I think the things that we really paid attention to were the things that we could control. And it was behavior issues, attention, stamina, patience, the lack of background knowledge and vocab schema, and like you were saying with math is like the foundational skills. Those are some things that we can also control. The oral language is lacking. That's something that we can help here at school. And then the Maslow's basic needs being met, we can do that here. We also talked about some missing phonics and foundational skills and how they're taught. Those are things that we have control over. The other things we can't change. We can't change that we had to shut down. We can't change the lack of foundational skills that they missed, but we can change these things. So then we moved into how can we change these things? And we made a 3-stack. We said, okay, let's write 3 things of how we can address those. And I believe, I'm gonna go ahead and look over here, that we noticed that behavior issues was the biggest thing, is that in order for us to really get anywhere, we do need to have those behaviors under control. The next thing was really the foundational skills, background knowledge, and then we really looked more into lack of background knowledge and foundational skills. Those were huge parts that everybody in our group last time decided foundational skills was really a thing that was lacking, and it's something we could control and make big fill gaps in. And so when I move over here to that one, that's what we worked on last time, was that we talked about these things. So Tina, if you can read them, these are things that when we talk about how can we help these foundational skills, how can we do those things? What are some ways we could do that?
Consistency, like with the vertical alignment in our language, all blocks shared or should look to the same in like a cohesive way. Schedules should be same across grade level and district. Observations like learning walks, focus on the TEKS across, vertical alignment is focus on the TEKS across grade level. Hold them accountable for the students and teachers to meet. And then the inventory is what is being taught. RGR, the whole group, passages, etc. With the end in mind.
Yeah. How do you guys still agree with those things?
Yes.
I feel like we've been talking about this so much. So many of these things I feel like have been a huge conversation we've been having, in our data meetings, but also in our PLCs. Is there anything you want to add to that we didn't talk about last time?
Well, I just want a little bit of clarification if I can on the schedule, the same across grade level and district. What did we mean by that? I forgot what we said.
We talked about like the blocks, like our blocks.
Okay.
Do you want to?
I think it was whenever we were talking about like during like the RGR time, or their like language arts part of the day. It's like spent this time.
Okay, yeah,
This
that's what I
amount of
thought.
time, and
Yeah.
the math is this amount of time, the block.
Yeah.
So, cause some, it's like some have like, oh, I'm gonna do math for 30 minutes and the rest of the day is reading. And so
Yeah.
it just needs to be consistent across
Yeah.
the whole district, not just.
That's what I
Covers
thought.
expectations,
Yes.
yeah. And we put on their district, like, it would be, here's the thing is we are in this weird limbo with the district of us not giving too much and saying, you have to do it this way, because we've done that.
Mhm.
Here is your schedule,
Yeah.
and it didn't go well.
This is what you do.
To, hey, you don't have a schedule, you make your own, and I feel like we're in this pendulum where we've not found a happy medium.
Yeah.
So, district wise, I don't know if we'll get that same, like, here is your schedule, but it's something that I think that we have talked about a need here on campus. Our students need it, our teachers need it, really the admin, when we come in, just a schedule would be super helpful. It's common. Any other like questions, or you guys wanna talk, I mean, anything, we're gonna get into the how it's going with these.
Okay.
But if there was anything else like for, any clarity or adding. I know we have observations and it says learning walks, and I know we don't have it on here, but I mean, even walkthroughs. You guys could play a huge part in that. I know we didn't talk about that much, but we can talk about that if that's something you guys are seeing. When we get into observations, we can talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So looking at that, it's just my brain keeps going, oh my gosh, we have so much to do, but we've already been doing so much and making changes since our last meeting. I believe that we are kind of getting there. We're not there, but we're getting there. So I'm just gonna kind of ask some questions for us to sort of reflect on. Really, how are we doing with some of these things? The big part that we focused on was that we wanted to focus on our foundational skills and how they are being taught. We have taken that, and I know behind each of these we have our learning lab groups. So what I'll probably do is open up one of them and we can kind of talk about how it's going, what we've been doing, and things that we know we need to change to progress it, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to just ask some questions, but let's really focus on each of those, the consistency, the inventory, accountability, alignment, kind of as I ask a question, if we can kind of refer back to those topics.
Okay.
So the first thing, our progress. How do you think we are doing with the inventory? What is being taught? Specifically, let's just go with really great reading. So that's going K through 2. Tina, I know you're working with teachers because you have learning lab groups, so your RTI group. You can refer to that or in the class. What are you noticing?
Well, I work with second graders during RTI time, and I was doing, cause I have the sweet and low kiddos.
Yes.
So we were doing interactive writing more and then shared reading at the beginning. And then we just brought this in, like where all of the tutors are doing this and teachers. I will say last week I was worried because I didn't know the passage is difficult.
Yeah.
So we just broke it down into little pieces each day. And then we worked on a part, like the part last week was L-E, ul. So we like dug deep into that, found words with that. And then Thursday was their writing sample, and all of them were able to take that on in their writing sample.
Wow.
Or their little dictation sentence. Yes.
And they were able to do that skill.
Yes.
In their dictation.
So I was so impressed with the ones that I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But and what I like is that they're getting that a week before it's gonna be in the classroom.
Okay.
So they're already getting exposure to it because things are a little bit difficult for them.
Yeah.
So when they go in the classroom like this week, they're like, oh, I already know this. So they feel a little bit more confident.
Okay. So that's definitely like the progress we're seeing is helping, because if you really think about it, we're kind of being consistent.
Yes.
And we're using what they're already doing in class, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, you face that challenge, but I think that you kind of tweaked your lesson a little bit to help, and you stuck with it and didn't go, this is too hard?
No, at the very beginning, I was like, the
Uh-huh.
first day, I was like, this is not gonna work, but I thought, okay, we're just gonna break it down.
Okay.
And that helped.
Okay.
And then we just did some extra like activities outside of what, we did RGR and then some extra activities with the OL, and I think that helped too,
Perfect.
because it was more hands-on for
Okay.
them and not just a passage. So,
And it aligned with what was going on in the classroom.
yes,
Okay, and that you found was helpful.
yes, and even talking to the teachers, Miss Tally was talking, she said that they recognized like in the classroom, she was like, they're like, oh, where did this with Mrs. Newkirk?
Perfect.
So they're remembering it and holding it.
Awesome.
And
I
it's
love
with the
that.
students that don't remember and hold a lot.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
So it
to
sounds like
hear.
that consistency, the
Yes.
language is helpful, and that really is showing like successes, but it is still challenging.
Yes.
So I think something that we may still face is making sure all the tutors, I know you're not doing really great reading, but
Mhm.
making sure all the tutors can adjust where needed, but
Mhm.
stick with it, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think if we just all use the same language,
Mhm.
it makes it easier on them because they're not confused on.
What to do.
Yes.
If they hear it 14, if they hear, silent E,
Yes, they're
and then, but they hear like, oh, it's an invisible E, or they
Yes.
hear like they have all these different names for the
Yes.
same thing, it's
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that common language, I think, is big.
Yes.
So I love that, and I know that in all of our second grade groups, we are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see, because I know you used to work with kindergarten and first grade, but
Mhm.
could that work with kindergarten and first grade, do you think?
I think if it's working with second grade, I really do think it could work with kinder and first.
So do you think like moving forward, based on like what you're seeing and the teachers, would you give the recommendation and say, hey, this is something we could do?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Because the kids that I work with in second grade are on a kinder level,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're grasping this on a second grade level,
Yeah.
then it could be done.
Okay, I'm gonna put a note that is something that like we could take into even moving forward. We have our data meetings next week. Having a conversation and saying, okay, I know we're working on these things, but how about we just try them? We'll have 12 full days,
Mhm.
but 3 weeks of doing some explicit
Mhm.
lessons, but we can even rotate back in the skills that they're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Going like, hey, they were struggling
Yes.
with the val teams, and we can pull
Yes.
that one. Okay, so I'm gonna recommend that for,
I think doing that, like how we're doing with second grade, it goes with like the accountability for the teachers.
I agree.
You
Yeah,
have to do that like 100%. Yeah, you're gonna tweak it to what your kids need, but
the expectation that's
and
being
it holds
done.
it held me accountable last week.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
I
you
can't,
know, yeah, I can't just
Like, this is
stop
what I'm
doing
doing
this.
on
But it was
Wednesday.
hard for them.
Yeah.
But we kept pushing forward, and I was like, they got it.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah.
That's really good. I love that because it's showing that there is progress with it and they're
Mhm.
transferring it back in the classroom, which is ideally what we want in learning labs. We want them learning whatever they're doing in learning labs to be able to do it in
Yes.
class. Okay, so MJ, I know shifting to math, we've been focusing in, I'm gonna focus kind of with kinder and first, is that you were able to help get them some activities where they were doing word problems.
Mhm.
How is that going?
So, okay, with my first grade group, I wanted to see if they knew like the words like subtraction, addition, sum,
Uh-huh.
difference. And they do. They know what those words mean. Like before we even started on the word problems, I was like, if I were gonna tell you to subtract, no, actually what I said, if I were gonna tell you to add something, what does that mean I'm doing with those two numbers? And their response was put them together.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, so if I want to find the sum, how do I find the sum? And one of the kids was like, well, you have to add. So they're hearing that
Cool.
language,
Okay.
and it's, and I have kids out of every classroom in first grade, so we're consistent there. So that was nice to hear, because I didn't know going into it, like, am I supposed, because
Yeah.
I'm coming from a background where I'm gonna say the words that they're gonna see, addition,
Yes.
subtraction, sum, things like that. And so I didn't know if they were approaching it that way in the classroom. Apparently they are.
That's
So
awesome.
it's good to see that. Yeah.
That's good.
And they're also they're retaining the strategies that they have learned in the classroom. So a lot of them can mentally do the addition where they're gonna start with that first number and then count on with the second, and then they also know that if they can't do that, they can draw a picture
Okay.
of what they're doing.
Yes.
And they're all like, you know, because in the past, like some kids want to actually draw the picture of a cat and a dog, and like they're just doing little circles,
Yes.
and they know what to do with that.
That's good.
So yeah, there's some strategies that I'm seeing that are carrying through, and
Nice.
yeah.
And then your group is really working on those foundational skills. And
yeah.
so with what you're doing, do you feel like the focus on foundational skills in your learning lab groups, do you feel like it is benefiting the students? Do you feel like they're making progress overall, not just with this? It says like their vocabulary is getting better and they're building their language, but their actual skills. How are you feeling they're doing with that part of it?
I think they have to have that vocabulary to understand what they're supposed to do in the problem, so their skills are improving. Because that's how the math problems are being presented to them in the classroom.
Yes.
And if they don't know when their teacher tells them, I need you to add these numbers together to find the sum, they're not going to know what to do with them. So like now, since they at least have strategies to solve it that way, then they're actually making progress. Because when I first had some of them, they could barely count a collection of counters.
Yes.
So the fact that we can actually physically draw the picture, or we can start with that first number and count on, that's some improvement.
Yeah, I knew counting on was a big thing that y'all have been doing in the foundational skills in a lot of your math groups.
Yeah.
And I know in kindergarten we were like, okay, I think we were ready to move past that.
Yeah, kindergarten's really
Do
strong.
you think that in kinder and first, in the math groups, and I know you're not with all of them, but I know you've been a huge help with the learning labs. Do you think that we stayed in foundational skills too long for the right amount of time, or what's your thoughts with that? Like, just about, because I know foundational skills is what we've been talking about. What do you think?
I think with kindergarten, we did it the right amount of time.
Okay.
Because I feel like with some of my friends in my groups, they're where they should be in kindergarten, according to our curriculum where we're supposed to be now. I think in first grade, we were in it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those, drawbacks that we had from one of our Ys that we can't control. So, but with the fact that we still had to stay in that a little bit longer, we're starting to see some improvements in a smaller amount of time, because now we're getting a little bit older, we're getting a little more mature, so our stamina's building, if that makes
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you agree with
Yes.
that?
Yeah, it seems these last couple of months there has just been growth.
Good, okay.
There's been a lot of growth.
And that's kind of what I was looking for up here, was I was noticing that our stamina was one of the things.
Yeah.
And so it's like we needed the background knowledge, the foundational skills, but it looks like stamina, it's almost like by working on those things, we're also working on the stamina as well.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of them, since our background knowledge has improved, then being more successful at the tasks that we're doing is improving our stamina.
Nice, okay.
Because they're gonna wanna work harder because they know they're getting it, instead of failing every single time. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really good. And I know, and I'm gonna kind of stick with math for a second. I know that when we talk about these things, we noticed that third grade was having some really big gaps as well. And a problem that we faced was that we didn't have a third grade, really a foundational skill group. Because MJ, I know you weren't doing third grade because of the schedule. You were doing kindergarten through second. We had tutors in the afternoon. But I know that was something that we had some challenges when we were looking at our third grade group, is we had this group of students, we were like, they're in this in between and we didn't have a good place for them to go. So how is that third grade? I know you haven't had them for a long time, but tell us a little bit about how that third grade's going, maybe some progress you've made so far, maybe some challenges you're seeing.
I was expecting them to be like super, super low.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting, okay, we're low. But they came in with some skills that I wasn't expecting them to have, especially counting in multiples. I am used to, from my background, I'm used to having students that just don't even know where to begin when they get stuck in counting in multiples. So they're coming to me with strategies. They're not the most efficient strategies, but they're a strategy to get them from point A to point B, basically.
Okay.
They're a very concrete group, like everything needs to be in some kind of representation for them to see in a concrete manner first.
Yes.
But once they can see that, then they can work through a problem.
Okay.
Right now, we're doing those math packets that I cannot remember what they were
The
called.
countdown?
The countdown.
Yes.
and we're only focusing on one question a day.
Okay,
And we're talking about, one of them was, now that I'm talking about it, I'm totally forgetting what it was. But, one of them was representing a number in different ways.
okay,
So instead of just looking at the question and then the answers, what we talked about first was I put a number on the board and I was like, how can you get to this number? What are some ways we can get to this number? How can we represent it? And we made a list of everything. So when we got to the question, they kind of had that, even though it was just 5 minutes ago, they still had that background knowledge to think about, this is how we represented it, because those questions are really good about throwing in that one that tries to trick you.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. And so that was easier for them to recognize that tricky answer. So that's kind of how we're tackling it. We're looking at it one question at a time, and we're kind of doing a little
Like backwards,
yeah,
but
yeah,
not,
going backwards
yeah.
first, yeah.
So I mean, I think that was what they were seeing, the challenge in third grade was that she was seeing that they are so visual, and they kind of shift from second grade. They get a lot of those visuals and they go straight into third grade, and those visuals
Goes
really are
to
like cut.
abstract.
Mhm.
So I think that going backwards is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you are addressing the needs that need to be met.
Mhm.
And I see that we're still kind of working in, like for you, I just really like that both of you guys are working with like K through 2, K through 3 now, and then you're kind of helping with that vertical alignment, because you guys are like the key holders, that's not the right word, but really that you're seeing in each grade level and you're going, I'm seeing a tie between them, but you're also seeing the gaps between grade levels.
Mhm.
And so I think you can go, wow, I'm noticing that they can do this in kinder.
Mhm.
For some reason our first and our second graders can't, and then in third grade they are doing it, or vice versa, however that looks.
Mhm.
But I think that y'all's input is so important because you're working with so many different grade levels.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just thinking about it, I'm looking at what we're trying to look at is like that alignment, the language, you guys are gonna be our best bet of seeing all,
Mhm.
you know, because the teachers know what they know in their own grade level. So, moving forward, I mean, that's gonna be something we're gonna talk about in a second as we wrap up, but just to say, like, moving forward, I would love to have you guys a part of the observations or the learning walks, or even just in your groups of saying, hey, what are you noticing with language? Because when we talk about it, I think we're noticing that some of the kids are not transferring from grade level to grade level.
Mhm.
And maybe it's the way we're teaching it, or maybe it's the way that we're not maybe following through with a skill. Anyways, I was just thinking about it as you guys were talking. I'm like, God, it's such a good, y'all are literally the gatekeepers of like hearing it from all grade levels. Cause it's hard when not many people get to be with all.
Yeah.
And with the mindset of where you guys are like knowing what you know,
Yeah.
it comes differently.
Well,
So,
and it's nice for those kids too that are, I mean, this is going off topic just a little bit, but it's nice for those kids that we know that are falling behind, that they're getting, like, I feel like they're getting a chance to actually be successful
yes,
in that smaller group.
I would agree.
I feel that way.
Yeah.
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 I think absolutely. So,
Even the ones that don't, they're successful.
yes,
I know.
they're getting there. But it is good to see that we started where we were starting, and now, like, even first grade, for example, like where they started, and
Cool.
the attention was short. They had so many gaps, and there are still some gaps. So for me personally, I'm thinking that we still have a lot of challenges. I feel like overall kinder, for the most part, they're where they need to be for kindergarten. Like there's not a whole lot of them that we're going, wow, ooh, we're gonna struggle. But then we think about it, we go back to, they were 3-year-old. They were
That's what I
3
was saying, like this foundation, their foundation's being built right now.
right now. And so we're not seeing it. First grade, I think they were pre-K, and so a lot of them didn't go to pre-K, so they didn't get a lot of those skills, or they went to pre-K in a very weird time.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle, and we're seeing second grade, and we're seeing third grade. So I feel like the biggest chunk of our kids is first, second, third.
Yes.
And I keep thinking, if we can keep trying to do the things that you guys are doing in an intentional way, we can hopefully fill that in.
Yeah.
Will it ever look the same for them?
Who knows?
Some of them we don't know. But I know that we think here at South Georgia, I know we're doing all the things to, like, we're super cognizant and very aware of the things that we know are happening with our students, instead of saying they're just low.
Well, I will say to our students' credit,
Mm-hmm.
that I have noticed all year, and I don't know how the teachers are getting this across, but our students, for the most part, they're motivated,
Mhm.
and they try to motivate each other.
That's great, yeah.
So, I mean, you know what, we have some of our things, we have stamina, we have, foundational, but our kids are motivated to try and, and to do better. And they also want to motivate their friends. So I think we have that in our back pocket too.
Yeah.
That we need to.
And that might tie back to like the morning meetings that we have.
Yes.
The emphasis on school family,
Mhm.
that maybe that's what we need to continue.
Mhm.
If you're seeing that, it's something that's intrinsically motivating them,
Yeah. Mhm.
It's not us saying, here's a piece of candy because you said something nice to your friend. That's
Yes.
something that they know to be a good friend, this is what they need to do.
Yeah.
So that's good to know how they're treating each other.
Yeah.
And that we're seeing that, because that's with us scheduling that morning meeting every day,
Mhm.
we're gonna look into what are we gonna do next year and is it worth it? And I would say for the most part, we can say that, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because we can intentionally have that time to talk about it. I think now how we're doing it, like our accountability needs to probably be tight,
Yes.
but I
Yeah.
think that, that is definitely something, because it's addressing what we know is a need, emotional needs
Yes.
and all those things. So another thing I wanna talk to you guys about is really, as we're talking, is what can we together kind of plan? Now, we're not planning in the next year, but if we are gonna say, okay, based on what we know, our needs are, what we need to work on, what we've been working on, if we can just kind of talk about what could next year, what could moving forward look like for these things? Like, what could we set in place to help with these things? So, for example, I'm gonna go straight, because I know it's on my list of things, is having a commonality in our blocks of time.
Yes.
It's like that consistency. So, and that's gonna kind of go with everything else, but mainly it's gonna go with also the inventory. So it's gonna go with like what is being taught in that block of time. So
Yes.
what are y'all thinking we could, like moving forward, what is something we could say we need to be really adamant about setting this up for next year? What do
Like
you
out
guys?
of this.
Yeah, I'm
And
kind of gonna
she's-
stop with
and
like
she's
blocks.
focusing on schedules.
Schedules and
Yeah.
blocks. What are y'all thinking? Just,
Well, sorry, this is gonna be a stupid question, but like, are we allowing the same time in each grade level for ELA reading? Are we
So-
doing the ELR?
so we
Sorry,
need to
yeah.
look at like subjects and the
Mhm.
times each subject is being given.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question.
Mhm.
We do have district minutes, or release
Yes.
that, but we need to so really what we need to do is make sure that we are, we're, holding ourselves accountable our time. We're, following the district's, time, the
Yeah.
minutes.
Mhm.
So subjects, I'm gonna put minutes, to make sure we have enough. So I think that's the first step, is knowing
Yeah.
how much. So if it's 60 minutes for math,
Mhm.
and then I know it was 120 for reading, which seems shocking, but we can look at that. So us knowing this first,
Mhm.
okay, then what else could we, kind of from knowing that, what could we move into that will help with our schedules and maybe our blocks? Tina, I know you have some ideas. You share them with me, because I have some too.
Okay, well, transitions for sure.
I was going to say.
I just feel like things need to be a little bit tighter.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying like with a stopwatch, I'm just
No.
saying like,
Mhm.
Being aware of how long it's
Yes.
taking to do things,
yes,
okay?
because I feel like if that is under control, that's gonna help with our how for behavior,
Okay,
because there's gonna be little time
Mhm.
for that.
agreed.
I feel like, maybe like the reward system should
Okay.
be done like maybe once a week instead of
Yes. For
every
the,
day.
are you, oh, yes, okay,
Like the tickets, counting
yes.
tickets and getting their reward. I feel like that's, I mean, yeah, still give them tickets daily,
Mhm.
so they're being rewarded all the time, but, cashing them in, I feel like is
Yeah.
a lot of time spent that could be done
Yes.
in other areas.
So-
That could be spent on more math.
Mhm.
yes.
Since the district's only like, okay, they're gonna get an
Yeah.
hour, that could be 20 extra minutes in math that they could do, like, what is the?
Number talks.
Yeah,
Never talks,
Yes,
like,
yes.
that was so important, that was the first thing we did every day in our
Okay.
classroom, when I was in the classroom.
So really, I'm hearing like time management, like looking at what we're doing that's kind of time wasting.
Mhm.
Yes.
So once we can tighten that, but in order to tighten that, do you think we should look at the blocks, like our grade levels should meet and have alignment each grade level, like their block of time? I say that from my end because like when I go into one classroom in kindergarten, they're not doing the same thing at that same time as another classroom.
Right.
No.
Mhm.
That's really hard, and I think it makes it hard for planning, but it also makes it not consistent, and the accountability is harder.
Yes.
So how do you think, I mean, personally, that's kind of my thoughts was like the grade level, schedules.
Yes.
And like a
For
broken
sure.
down schedule.
Yes.
And the upper
Specific.
grades, it's a little easier because
Yeah.
they switch classes. So
Exactly.
we know they're
It
gonna
is.
spend that
Like-
amount.
K
Yeah.
through.
It's really
second.
K.
Well, first, because second switches classes.
Oh, yeah.
Next year, it might look a little different. There
Oh,
might be a little
okay.
change in that. So I'm just gonna K through second
Mhm.
because really, I mean, I'm gonna even say pre-K
Mhm.
Mhm.
because I think that we have to be very tight in knowing like we have 10 minutes
Mhm.
or sorry 10 minutes. We have an hour and 20 minutes.
Mhm.
The first 10 minutes is going to be
Morning meeting.
morning meeting.
Mhm.
Then after that, it is gonna be phonics from this time to this
Yes.
time.
Mhm.
So when we as admin, or if you guys observe and do those, we all know, no matter what classroom we go in,
Yes.
I know this.
everyone should be doing this.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love the autonomy that I wanna always give teachers autonomy,
Yes.
but I think that what we need here is
Mhm.
The time spent.
our time spent, what is being spent on. But I think we need that alignment and we need it to be for accountability,
Yes.
but also that we're getting everything in.
Mhm.
I agree.
Mhm.
And it may be like, because there may be a teacher that feels stronger in math, so
Uh-huh.
she carries over her math time a little bit
Yes.
longer.
Yeah.
And her scores are, showing that.
Yes.
The kids are getting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus another teacher that feels stronger in reading.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I feel like that will give them all.
Yes, blocks. And I think this allows us to go, okay, back to our inventory, what is being taught?
Mhm.
So when they make the schedule, when they make their blocks, their like literacy block of time, they're saying, I will make sure I get in from this time, I'm doing this, from this time I'm doing this. And there's no way of people going, oh, I just didn't have time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we now know for reading academies, for science and teacher reading, we have to have these parts.
Mhm.
Think about number talks.
Mhm.
What's the first thing that's gonna get dropped if we don't have time?
Yeah.
Number
Yeah.
talks.
Mhm.
But is it gonna be helpful for kids not to have number talks?
Yeah.
It's something that's necessary.
Mhm.
So I really think to like hold tight to really a lot of these things, I think our schedules are gonna be huge.
Well, and
Yes.
getting down to the nitty gritty things like number talks or
Mhm.
phonics, we need to make sure that they're consistent in how they're approached.
Okay.
Yes.
Because not every teacher knows exactly how to run a number talk.
Yeah.
Not every teacher knows exactly how to do a phonics
Mm-hmm.
thing.
A phonics
thing. Sorry, I'm a math
and
teacher.
learning. I know, I love it. I love it.
So probably jumping ahead,
Yeah.
when you're saying
go.
that, I feel like that goes like with
Okay.
observations.
Mhm.
I love like being able to go and observe
Mhm.
another teacher, not just within the school that you're at, but at another school.
Yes.
Mhm.
For you to be able to see like how number talks is done
Yes.
with
Yeah.
that teacher that's really strong in that, or how the science of reading is done.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yep. And so maybe that could be an actionable step is that I know we did that already and it was so powerful and there was
Yes.
already actionable steps taken by the team that went to go watch
Yes.
and they're seeing power in it because they were able to see it
Mm-hmm.
and then they they had to really
Yeah.
like consume it,
Mhm.
chew it up, go, okay, what can I do? What can I take?
Yeah.
And they made the changes and they're seeing value in it.
Mhm.
Or even if there's like a teacher that's strong in number talks going into that classroom, that's what happened. Like
Yeah.
I was not strong in math at all, and so
Yeah.
I had no clue about number talks. So we had someone come in and model for me,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then that I loved it because
Yes.
it helped me. And she didn't just do it like one day; it was like a consistent
Yeah.
week,
I love that.
And you're
Yeah,
just
'cause
able to
it's-
sit down and watch or record and take notes,
Yeah.
and so
I think that's gonna be good. What else can you guys see? I'm gonna run back to this. There's some actionable things that we could take into next year, to really help our students. Can I okay, mine is vertical alignment.
I was just fixing to say
Yeah.
vertical.
That's
I
where I
mean,
was gonna go.
kind of goes in with the. I mean,
The consistency too.
yes.
What I am seeing in the upper grades is that we have especially during testing time, we have 3 different strategies.
Mhm.
3 different ways to do something.
Mhm.
And that's hard for the kids.
Mhm.
That's hard for the kids to transfer from grade to grade. So then we're gonna lose time because they're gonna learn it this way, they're gonna get really good at it, and then they go to 4th grade.
Yeah.
And then they're like,
Yes.
okay, that's how we do this. And they're like, wait, what? That's, I don't know. And they're like, you've never been taught this? And they teach it, and then by the end, it's the same thing. It was just taught totally differently. I think vertical alignment in that aspect is so important. And it's not, and it cannot be about the teacher. It has to be about the students. And I think sometimes as a teacher, to align vertically for them to change something, they take it personal.
Yeah.
And I think we have to realize that it's not about them, teachers, it's about the students. And what we're doing to the students is it's a huge disservice to our students.
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I agree.
I mean, yeah, this is a conversation that I've had many years because, you know, you learn how to do, well, we can even break down a multiplication. You learn how to do multiplication one way in 3rd grade. Then when you get to 4th grade, you do it a different way, and it's called bunny ears, and or the Loch Ness or Nessie. And then you get to 5th grade, and we're not using any of those. We're doing it this way, and so there needs to be just, I mean, you know,
I know, I'm 100. And I mean, I know we worked at Hamlet together, and when they finally put vertical alignment in our schedule. They set it up for us during the day. We had 3 hours. We pulled out our teaks, and we were like, how do you teach this? My kids are struggling with this. How are they teaching it? I know that me and the 3rd grade teacher, her and I worked really well together, and we had never really gotten to meet together much, but we then relied on each other, and then we would do planning together. And our language the same, our strategies were the same, but the 4th grade teacher wasn't on board, didn't really want to get on. She's like, I'm doing it my own way. And so the 3rd graders would learn it one way. They'd go to 4th grade, they weren't very successful. They'd come to 5th grade and they'd be like, oh, I remember doing that in 3rd grade. And so it felt disconnected, but it was connected in between these 2 grade levels. And so we saw the value in it. It was hard because then eventually, about a year and a half later, that other person got on board, and it felt more fluid, and it helped the kids. It was so nice when they're like, oh yeah, Miss Little John taught it this way too, and you're like, yes, so you already know how to do it, you're already successful, and then we could build off of it, and then we can get more rigorous. And I think that's where we're at, is we find ourselves reinventing the wheel each year. And then we can't get to the rigor where they should
back to consistency.
Okay.
Like, we need to, because we're not gonna see this payoff in 5th grade in just that first year. We need to be consistent with it, like even getting back together the next year and saying, do you remember what went well, what didn't go well, you know, with it last year? And that's hard because a year, it's easy to say that at the beginning of the year, and then a lot of year happens.
It does. It does. We come to May, April, where we're at, and everybody seems frazzled. I think it's a powerful thing. I know last year and the year before, we did have vertical alignment days set up to talk, and it was really good. I just know it's a need, and Heather and I have talked about that need and how powerful it is. So I think that's gonna hold it back to how are we gonna see, you know, we can't keep teaching foundational skills. We can't stay there. And I think that that's also a conversation of saying, okay, now we've got these kids where they need to be. In RTI, we can meet those foundational skills, but we need to keep pushing. And that's why I asked the question of, do you think we stayed in foundational skills too long? And that's not a point at anybody. I don't know. I don't know if we have, and I don't know when we'll be able to move there. Move on from it, but I think we're seeing it in 2nd grade. We stopped out of the foundational, and now we're moving into the accelerated, and they are getting there.
They are getting there.
Our kids can do it. I think it's just whether or not we have to go, okay, they're not going to get it 100%, but we got to keep going, because they're never going to be on grade level if we just stay in foundational.
Exactly.
So anyways, okay, well I'm just going to go over this really quick what we talked about, which some things moving forward, we have that we can really focus on our subject and the minutes per subject. How long do we need to, by state law, what is our district minutes, state minutes, how much for reading, math, everything. Transitions, maybe looking at how we can make those a little bit tighter to save that time, which also goes to a reward system weekly, maybe not doing it every single day, and that will help with our time management. Big thing is maybe even looking now, moving from there, is going grade level schedules, our blocks of time, and making sure we want our inventory, like the what is being taught. our have-tos. You know, we have to see number talks. There must be RGRs and phonics. There has to be this, and if we have those have-tos, then they can make those schedules, but it's the same across the grade level.
Yes.
Observations, like learning walks, modeling, how big that is and how powerful that's gonna be. It all goes back to really how are we being taught, how are we teaching what we're teaching? If we don't know how to do it, being willing to say, hey, can you show me what that looks like? And having pros pretty much in that area. Vertical alignment, and that we know that that would be so helpful for our students. It's not about an us thing, it's really a student thing. And their language could be the same, our strategies, and that way students can transfer. And their big thing is consistency, is reflecting with collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think those are really amazing, and especially we're about to move into our admin meeting where we're talking about next year in our professional development, our calendar. And I think this is, honestly, where we need to head, and it's so important. So I appreciate you guys. I know it's a lot of work that was done, but honestly, without you guys, without your input, we can't get here on our own. We have to have the people that are in it, seeing it, and y'all are seeing it on multiple grade levels, so y'all's input is so valuable.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other
You're
questions?
welcome. No.
All right, okay, that's it.